These days I've been doing a lot of workshops with my clients on future-proofing their organizations, essential corporate skills of the future. And that sort of got me thinking, what about kids? What are some of the essential skills for children as they grow up, into the future? And more importantly, I thought, what are some of the habits that we're doing these days that are causing young ones to, I don't know, are we preparing them well for the future, or are we creating, little monsters of the future? And I thought it'd be interesting to look at some of the habits that we've got these days. Today, one of the habits I thought I'd drill into, which is a personal pet peeve of mine, is screen times for children. Are we giving them too much screen time specifically? And what happens when we do? So let's explore that today. The other day I was at the mall and I was having dinner with my family, and I saw a sight that I'm very sure that, all of us are pretty familiar with. We were sitting down for dinner, and at the next table there was another family sitting down for dinner. And my wife sort of nudged me and said, "Hey, look at over on the other table." And I noticed them, there were three of them, the mother, father, and the child. And the funny thing was, it's funny to me now. Funny thing was, all of three of them had their handphones open on the tables in front of them. And they were all eating at the side. And they were all staring at their phones, and there was total silence coming from the table next door. And I caught myself thinking, really? Really? And I looked around the restaurant and I discovered that there were at least 5 other tables who were behaving in the same manner. And looking at it from a trainer's perspective, I sort of got myself thinking as to, does this impact the kid? And if it does impact the kid, then in what way does it impact the kid? So what I've done, and what I've always done, is that there's no screen time for my children at home. I don't allow them any sort of screen time at all, and that's a personal preference. And I totally respect the parents who do, because that's your own call. But looking at some of the children that are coming out these days, and the way they are interacting with the world around them, just makes me wonder, are we killing them with too much screen time? People always say that these phones, these whatever brands that you've got, they help people innovate, they help people create, be more creative, think out of the box, and so on and so forth. I personally am of the opinion that for young children at least, these things actually, these are creativity killers and imagination killers. That's my opinion. So I don't let my son have it at all, because I think without it, his imagination grows and he learns to explore the world around him, and I really love that. And I sort of pity the children who don't have that imagination, because whether you believe it or not, and whether you like it or not, research shows that this stifles thinking, because this does the thinking on their behalf, and therefore they are no longer required to think. Now, from a trainer's perspective, this is bad news. Because as we talk about future-proofing an organization, these young people are going to be the organizational workforce of the future. And if I have an organizational workforce, you can't think creatively, can't innovate well, then, that's going to be a challenge, isn't it? On a personal note, I'm thinking of how children interact these days, and the sociability that's required in order for any young person to be able to succeed in life, and whether the screen time sort of impacts that. And in my gut feeling, I think it does, because numerous times, and this is, I don't have any research to back this up, there probably is if you look it up online, but my personal experience is that children who have experienced a lot of screen time tend to be less sociable. They don't interact quite so well with the people around them. They're actually not that interested, and I've seen many huge fights between young children and adults about who gets to hold, SpongeBob SquarePants or whoever it is that they're watching online these days. And I find that pretty disturbing, because when children are young and they don't have the opportunity of screen times, they are forced to go outside into the outside world and get what they want. They're forced to interact with people to get what they want. They're forced to negotiate with people to get what they want. And because they learn how to do that at a young age, this holds them in good stead when they're older. Now, if you're robbing them of these opportunities to build these skills when they are 3 or 4 or 5, what's going to happen to them when they're 24 or 25? They're not going to be able to negotiate to get what they want. They'll know how to work this, but you know what? This doesn't take that long to learn how to work. My dad can learn how to work this in a couple of days maybe, and he's 76. So those of you who think that this is doing your child a favor, I'd like to ask you, do you think it's doing your child a favor, or is it doing you a favor by getting them out of your hair? Because I suspect that's what a lot of parents do. This becomes the default nanny, right? The babysitter, so that I can have a meal in peace. But you know what I've discovered? When I don't have these things at the table, when I don't make it a habit to bring this out for the kids, or for me and for my wife, the conversation becomes a lot richer. We get to have really strong family time together, and I wouldn't give that up for the world. Whoa, good job. So for those of you who are wondering, you know what? Don't underestimate the power of these habits when they're young. Because, you know, numerous researchers have shown how the brain sort of gets locked into place after a certain amount of years, and it takes a lot of effort to change it after that. So do yourself a favor, do them a favor. Less is more. Give them less screen time, give them more you time. What are we doing with our kids to help them future-proof? Like that. So the other day I was walking around in the mall and
Yeah, that's right.